guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to film my kind of Christmas recommends videos today, and I spoke about this in my last video. This isn't like a gift guide. This is, for me, like ideal books to have to read over Christmas. I love having a book that I can dive into over those like few days and just completely get lost in, and there's a list of some, like I've got a pile of some that I would have really liked to have read over Christmas. Like I think they'd make really good Christmas books. So this is more of like a present to yourself or a present from someone if they haven't got anything for you, because I just think they're brilliant. Like curling up on Christmas Eve, whether or not you are like working, I just think when you finish coming home, curling up, and then sort of over the holiday and through New Year, like that kind of reading period I love. So I'm going to get into it now and show you some books. I'm going to start with fiction. So the first one I have is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Tessa Moshfegh. Not all of these books are cheery books. Surprise, surprise, it is my channel still. But I think this book is one that just creates this little like odd world, and I read it and just completely dove into it. I also think kind of slightly chunkier books, like not novellas, are ideal for this because you kind of want to be able to spend some time with it, like over the few days. And I think I would have loved to have sat down and read this over Christmas, despite the kind of depressing subject matter. If you don't know, this is about a girl who is very privileged, has an awful lot of money, and decides to like check out of the world by essentially going to sleep throughout her life. With the aid of this like creepy psychiatrist who keeps kind of helping her put herself into deeper sleep. I think it's brilliant. It was such an amazing book for me. It was one of those ones I really loved and just had to talk about with Acacia. You might know Acacia, her channel's Acacia on Acacia Ives, and she's amazing. She is one of my best like booktube friends, and I read this and then I said to her like, have you read it? And then we had this really impassioned discussion about it, and I just think this would be such a good book to kind of curl up with and spend some time with. Then next I have If We Were Villains. I spoke about this one recently in my university books recommendations, but this is about a collection of college students who are all in this elite acting school, and things go awry in line with the Shakespearean plays that they are acting their way through. And I think like a kind of creepy collective people but kind of in a cosy setting is just like perfect. I think this would have made an amazing Christmas book. Then next I have one from last year, which is The Overstory by Richard Powers. My aim in trying to find a Christmas book this year was trying to find one that made me feel the same way as The Overstory did. I really like books about intricate tiny things but telling the story through lots of people. So this is a book about trees and nature told through the lens of loads of different characters. And it's one of those things where you don't realise that you're that interested until you start reading it, and then you're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I love that. I think that's also like, you want to spend time with books like that and indulge your curiosity, and I think that is The Overstory if you're interested in that kind of a read. Then I have one that's a little bit more Christmassy, and that is The Bright Edge of the World by Owen Ivey. And this is a historical novel talking about a man who's gone off to explore the wilderness in Canada and his young wife who's left back at home pregnant. And this is not, again, none of these are like really happy stories, but this is a story about their relationship, but it's very cold and weird and creepy, and if you're into that, again, my kind of stuff, that might be your kind of Christmassy book. I think I needed to have one in here where the setting was like super cold and snowy, and The Bright Edge of the World I really enjoyed. Next is one I read recently, and that is The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. I've asked for more Meg Wolitzer for Christmas because I just really love her writing. But I think this is a good one. This is a story about a group of friends from sort of early teenage years when they go to summer camp together and tracking their journey through their life. A little bit similar to the Tessa Moshfegh. You're kind of going into this world of their stories and their friendships, and again, I think I just wanted to spend loads of time with this book, and that's why this drew me. I think I kind of wish I'd saved this a little bit because this would have made such a good Christmas book for me. Then I have another one which is historical, and that's All the Light We Cannot See. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but clearly Christmas draws the historical fiction out in me. This is set with a background of World War II, and it's a really sad story, I think, but you can definitely like fall your way in. It's just gorgeous. It was one of those books I really enjoyed the process of reading and getting to know the characters, and the writing is that kind of clear but beautiful writing that I really like, and again it's kind of a fat one that you could curl up with over those few days off. And the next one is one I don't think you'd finish over Christmas, but I think you can definitely get a good headway into it, and that's The Crimson Petal and the White by Michelle Faber. And most of you know what this book's about. It's again historical fiction, Victorian England, and we follow a prostitute who is sort of, I'm going to say living her life, but people kind of think she's living above her station, but it's just, again, this like really deep world to fall into, and quite a lot of the settings are like dark and a little bit gloomy and a little bit wintry, and I think that kind of draws me to it again. I love reading this. If I hadn't read this so recently, I might have read this one again. I actually read, what's it called? The Book of Strange New Things was my Christmas book last year, and I loved it. So I did have that last year, but then I read The Crimson Petal and the White in the summer. I really enjoyed it, but I think that one would probably be even a better Christmas book than The Book of Strange New Things, though I did really enjoy reading that one over Christmas too. And then I have a few non-fiction recommendations for those of you who aren't so into the fiction over Christmas. The first one is just any Jon Ronson book. I think he's really funny, really easy to read. I have listened to, I think, all his books that are on Audible. And I think he's a really like approachable, fun person to take through that period with you, and you can also share loads of like facts that people will be like, what are you talking about? Because that's kind of how Jon Ronson works. I've listened to a few with Tom in the car and my mum in the car, and I think he's someone who has quite a wide appeal. I also just really like him as a person and what he writes about and what he thinks about. So yeah, Jon Ronson is a good one. And then the next one I have, I really enjoyed this book, but I wanted this to kind of take the place for essays in general also. So I chose Ziggy Smith's Feel Free because there's such a variety of different essays in here. It's a good length, you can skip around a little bit, and I really enjoyed it as a book. But I think having a collection of essays on a topic you really enjoy, whether or not that's Feel Free by Ziggy Smith, over Christmas is such a good idea, because sometimes, well, most of the time, Christmas is like very chill, but there's always lots going on, like there's games or people popping up, or we're doing lunch, or we're doing that kind of stuff. And I think essays is a really nice way to like delve in for like 20 minutes into something and feel refreshed. I mean, I feel refreshed. I'm a very introverted person, and feel ready to go and do the next kind of social bit. And I think I read Feel Free quite close to Christmas last year and really enjoyed the process with it, so that's probably why this one stood out. But I just think ones you're like super intrigued by is definitely a good like self-buy for Christmas. And the last two are medical books, and the first, again, none of these are like very Christmassy, but they are in my head. The first is The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and I love everything that Siddhartha Mukherjee has written. I have bought anything that has come out, and I will read anything else that he writes. He just explores in this book the history of cancer treatment, what cancer is, how it works, and the way that he puts things together and writes is so accessible and so fascinating, and this is one of my favourite non-fiction books. And whilst this might not be one with some facts to share with family and friends necessarily, I think it is just really intriguing. I could see myself reading this in the evenings when everyone else has gone to bed, and just like sitting there with a glass of wine in bed, reading this one. I just think that sounds like a fabulous time. And the next one is another one that I just loved reading, and that is Patient HM by Luke Dittrich. And this is talking about a man who became one of the like primary studies for memory and how memory works. But this is like a non-fiction book for people who are worried non-fiction books will read like textbooks. This is so fast-paced and like almost reads like it's a novel. It reads so fast and it's just so fascinating. And I think if you're interested in psychiatry or psychology or kind of the history of any of those things, or like the history of mental illness, that you will find this book fascinating. I also think if you're a bit of like a medical non-fiction junkie, you'll really love this. And yeah, again, I just want to kind of curl up with all these books. I have this huge pile of books and I'm like, I kind of want to read like all of you over Christmas. Yeah, so those are the books I would recommend. It's a bit of a weird list because, as I say, not particularly festive, not particularly happy. But these are my books that I would find fascinating, and I think it's lovely to have that as a tradition for yourself. And I'm a little bit worried this year as to whether or not I'm going to love any of the books I have saved for myself for Christmas. So I'm a little bit like anxious this year, to the point where I'm like, maybe I should just choose my favourite of these and reread that instead. But I think you've got to give it a bit of a gamble. But if you also have that tradition of like wanting to read in short bursts throughout that period of time off, then I think you might find something you'll like here. I'll see you guys again soon in my next video. Look after yourselves until then. Bye bye.